I'm Robin, and today my adventure begins moving from the USA to the Netherlands. So I'm in Reykjavik, naturally. And what a lovely day it really turned out to be. Now Reykjavik is the northernmost capital city in the world, and when I got there and just saw that huge cathedral at the top of the hill and that first Icelandic cafe, that sense of adventure was just fantastic. As I looked down the hill and I walked down and I was reading signs in Icelandic, which is just fascinating to me. Seeing the colours on the buildings, and the architecture that they had. And there were a lot of cafes too, which I like. I definitely got the sense there was a cafe culture there, and it was just so quiet, which was fascinating, because 60% of the Icelandic population live in the Reykjavik area. And looking up that hill every now and again and just seeing the cathedral tower down was a really great pleasure. And I love this way of travelling, just sort of letting the city show itself to you and unravel around every single corner. And as opposed to planning everything out so concretely, I really enjoy this sort of sense of discovery for oneself. And I ended up meeting with Mirko, which is a friend of my very, very good friend Luca in Italy. And so he was just a fantastic host. He's studying Icelandic and Icelandic linguistics here. And he just taught me so much about Iceland, the Icelandic people, their culture, and their language, which of course was fascinating for me. And it was just an overall, really, really great experience meeting him and meeting this city. Icelandic ducks. But do they quack any differently? So overall, I was just really charmed by the city. I'll definitely come back, and I just left the place feeling really, really good about everything. Right, so in this first episode, I'm going to try to do 4 things as briefly and efficiently as I can. Firstly, the questions, who am I? What is Going Dutch? Why the bloody hell was I in Reykjavik, Iceland? And I'm going to try to just show you a little bit about my lovely day in Reykjavik. Okay, so I have always been quite the dreamer. Growing up, pretty sure I spent most of my time in school, while I was in England at least, dreaming about what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, and very importantly, where it was going to be. And I don't really know exactly why, but for me, I've always been very location oriented, and the where has always been a very important element. And so, when I was 16 years old, after preparation and much determination, I moved to the US to play basketball in a high school for a year and a half. And once that was over, I went to university for 5 years, and a lot of things have happened in my life since then. And to keep this as short as possible and relevant, I'd be happy to go into more detail in other episodes. I have lived in Japan, in Fukuoka, Japan, as a Japanese English interpreter. I was in Kyoto, Japan, going to university and working as a barista in a cafe. I then was back in the United States, where I finished my degrees. Back in England for 7 months, then I was in Paris for a short while. Then I moved back to the USA, where I was working as a financial analyst for the last 4 or 5 months. And then here we are. And so essentially, during that time in the United States recently, I just found myself very, very unhappy. Working in a very sort of typical, American corporate environment. 50-hour work weeks mandatory, plus weekends with incentives, so of course then it becomes 60-hour work weeks, and before you know it, you find yourself like I did, with working 2 months straight with not one day off, and knackered, depressed, wondering what the hell am I doing. And I think for a lot of people, honestly, that steady paycheck, the car that I bought, the apartment that I rented, I think that is sometimes enough to persuade us to settle. I think where I'm very different than a lot of people is that I just am simply not willing to do that. And so something I think I have a lot of experience with is simply taking action. Especially with regards to, making very large changes in my life, in pursuit of happiness, I suppose. And so Going Dutch is basically a sort of, that's my story. It's my story of what's happening from now on out as I move to the Netherlands. And Going Dutch is a website, which is www.goingdutch.life. And on that website you can find this show in video format, and also you can find articles which I'm writing in English. And then I also have a special blog called Pardon My Dutch, which is where I'm writing very short stories about what's happening in Dutch with my mistakes. And I'm hoping that perhaps some of you lovely Nederlanders will will maybe give me suggestions or send me corrections. And there we go. And my first article is up. So if you go to the website and then you go to it's very easy to navigate. You'll find my first article, and that goes into a lot more detail about the situation that I found myself in the US. But I must keep this short, which is I've already failed. Okay, so why was I in Reykjavik? So you're probably going through all of these reasonably logical explanations, such as I probably was kidnapped by Vikings, and then they took me, and then I talked so much that they left me in Reykjavik, where I had a nice day and then continued my trip. Sadly, this is not the case. I simply had a layover. One of these things where I was searching for flights, and there was the option for a 1-hour layover or a 25-hour layover, and of course I told my mum, oh, there was no choice. It was, oh my god, I had to 25-hour layover. What am I going to do? I guess I'll just have to leave the airport and spend a nice day in Reykjavik. But anyway, so that's sort of, I'm going to stop it there, and then the next episode will pick up here in England. See you soon, and any questions or comments, please email me at robin@goingdutch.life. If you any questions you want to ask me, particularly interested in future episodes, please do ask. Feel free to comment, and I hope you enjoy my show.